Let's bring in Dan Howley for much more on our company of the year. And Dan, just so our viewers are aware, we do put up a number of companies that could be potentially company of the year. Walk me through the thinking of why Zoom is at the top of that list, because some would argue there's a number of companies out there that have really benefited as a result of those of us just staying at home. Peloton, another name that we've seen huge upside in during this year. Why specifically is Zoom at the top?
Yeah, I mean, we looked at obviously the numbers of other companies as well, but I think it's the revenue growth that Zoom experienced, the user growth that Zoom experienced, and then obviously the stock growth that it experienced. And I think above all, you have to take that as at a broader context as to how it's also ensured that people can continue to function on a relatively normal basis despite the kind of lockdowns we've seen as a result of the pandemic. So I mean, look, we've been able to continue working. We use a different platform, but several different companies use Zoom to just communicate on a daily basis. Friends and family now get together and use Zoom. Thanksgiving, they lifted the 40-minute limit on usage so that people could socially distance for Thanksgiving while still celebrating with friends and family. So I think outside of just the numbers, you have to look at the fact that it's made this kind of big difference in a year where, things haven't gone so well for the world. So I think the idea that they've managed to do that while continuing to see that kind of user growth, and for the most part doing it without issue. They had some security problems around the March and April timeframe that they looked to plug. They reached a settlement with the FTC over that, and their stock price never suffered as a result. So I think the company really does deserve its part as Company of the Year.
Yeah, and Howley, I mean, when we talk about Yahoo Finance Company of the Year, it's an honor when you think about it, but it's also an honor when you think about how the stocks perform the year after. Target's still enjoying a pretty strong year, and when we look at the companies, I mean, we never really overlook that. As you're pointing out, there's not a lot of companies that can post more than 350% quarterly revenue growth and then trade down, but that's what we saw happen with Zoom. When you think about the discussion being held right now about whether 2021 will actually see a return to normal for Zoom, or whether they can keep this up as things open back up, where do you fall on that, and where are the expectations around what the future looks like for Zoom?
Yeah, I mean, look, the kind of numbers that they've seen are just unsustainable, flat out, right? I mean, 356 or 50%, 367% in the last quarter. That's absurd, and I think to kind of hit the company for not being able to hit those numbers again, it doesn't really make too much sense. But I think when you look at the 2021, what they're going to try to do is stabilize those numbers, not lose as many people. And I think the majority of experts that I spoke to said that they think that the companies, those that spend the most money on Zoom, will be the ones that stay on. And that's because, look, yes, people will be able to go back to offices, but we've talked about this idea of a new normal where some people will want to work from home. And a lot of companies still need virtual meeting capabilities. And if they have Zoom, it doesn't seem likely that they would drop it just because a lot of employees went back to the office. They're still going to need that capability. And Zoom is already signed, or they're already signed up with Zoom. So they'll stay on. And then outside of just the video chat aspect, they have other features that they're working on implementing or have implemented, including a meeting space that they offer. So I think this is something that is going to continue to do well. Just don't expect that kind of stratospheric growth to exist long term.
And Dan, I know you spoke with Kelly Steckelberg, the CFO there, as well as the COO over at Zoom as part of your piece. But we haven't heard a lot from the CEO and, of course, the founder, Eric Yuan. What are you hearing about how these operations are shifting up, and why, is this sort of an intentional push internally, or is he sort of laying low right now? There are certainly some who would argue, look, since some of the security concerns emerge, he hasn't put himself front and center.
Yeah, it's been kind of a strange thing to see a company grow this much and the CEO kind of take a back seat. But that's exactly what we've seen here. According to Zoom, Eric is basically focusing on the product itself. That's why he doesn't make himself as available to media. It would be nice to be able to see more of him and hear more about what his thoughts are on the kind of growth that the company's had. And then, as you said, the controversies that have surrounded it. And, to his credit, he did respond around the time of the controversies in March and April, basically apologizing to users about the security problems. But since then, as you point out, he has been lying low. So it will be interesting to see if he comes up for air and speaks to the media later in the year. I mean, we only have a few weeks left, or perhaps in 2021, but we would like to see more of that from a company of this size, especially one that's grown so much.
Yeah, tough to expect the CEO of Zoom to be able to avoid just hopping on a Zoom call too. You would think that that would be a little bit easier there since it's in the company's culture. But Dan Howley, appreciate you bringing us the thinking there in making Zoom Yahoo Finance's company of the year.